What does it mean to be you? Is your identity a fixed reality, something continuous and stable through time, or is it a constructed narrative, a fragile illusion stitched together by memory, language, and social recognition? This question, seemingly abstract, is central to some of the deepest inquiries in philosophy. It reaches into the heart of consciousness, personal identity, and the limits of self-understanding. From Descartes to Nietzsche, from Locke to Parfit, thinkers have questioned whether the self we experience is real or just a useful fiction. This essay is an exploration of that question. René Descartes is often credited with laying the groundwork for modern Western philosophy. His famous dictum, cogito ergo sum, or I think therefore I am, emerges from a radical project of doubt. Descartes attempted to discard everything he could possibly question. He doubted the senses, the body, and even mathematical truths. Yet, he concluded that while everything else could be doubted, the act of thinking itself could not. The very process of doubting presupposes a subject that doubts. Hence, there must be a thinking I. But Descartes' I is curiously undefined. It is not the self in any rich psychological sense. It is not a personality or story. It is a bare subjectivity, a pure point of awareness, untethered from any stable identity. The irony is that the I Descartes finds is not the one most people believe in. Jean Locke, writing in the 17th century, took a psychological turn. For Locke, personal identity is rooted in memory. A person is the same over time if they remember their past experiences. This continuity of consciousness, not the body, not the soul, is what makes someone the same person through time. As Locke writes, as far as this consciousness can be extended backwards to any past action or thought, so far reaches the identity of that person. But this theory raises problems. What happens when memory fails? Do people with amnesia cease to be who they were? If identity depends on memory, then it becomes fragile and unreliable. Moreover, memory can be manipulated. We can misremember. We can even remember things that never happened. If identity depends on something so fragile, can it ever be stable? The ancient thought experiment, known as the ship of Theseus, dramatizes this instability. Let's suppose a ship has every one of its wooden parts replaced over time. Is it still the same ship? Now imagine the original planks are reassembled into a second ship. Which one is the original ship? Applied to human identity, the question becomes, if our bodies and minds are constantly changing, what makes the same person over time? Every cell in the human body is replaced over a period of years. Our beliefs, desires, and memories evolve. Are we still the same person we were 10 years ago or even yesterday? There is no clear answer. And that's the point. The very idea of a real self may be incoherent. Derek Parfit advanced this line of thinking in the 20th century with devastating clarity. In Reasons and Persons, he challenged the notion of personal identity as deep and essential. What matters, he argued, is not identity, but psychological continuity. Parfit imagined thought experiments where a person steps into a teleporter that disassembles and reassembles them atom by atom elsewhere. If the reassembled person has all the same memories, personality traits, and psychological patterns, is that still the same person? He concluded that identity is not what matters. Survival does not require being the same person. Only being sufficiently connected in the right psychological ways. He wrote, "When I believed that my existence was such a further fact, I seemed imprisoned in myself. My life seemed like a glass tunnel. Now, when I think about it, I seem to be open in a peculiar way. I am less concerned about the rest of my life." In other words, once the self is no longer seen as something absolute, we are free. Free from the illusion of a solid identity and from the fear of its loss. In the 19th century, Max Stirner offered a radical egoist perspective. He denied not only social identity, but all abstractions, morality, religion, even humanity. To Stirner, the only reality is the individual's own will, their uniqueness. He wrote, "I am owner of my might, and I am so when I know myself as unique." The self, for Stirner, is not a fixed identity, but a force unbound by categories, resisting every label. Any attempt to define the self is a form of domination. Stirner's philosophy is anarchic. It destroys not only the illusion of a stable self, but also the structures that pretend to define it: society, morality, even reason. Friedrich Nietzsche also rejected the traditional concept of the self. He viewed identity not as a thing, but as a process, not being, but becoming. The self for Nietzsche is a mask, something we construct to manage chaos. In Beyond Good and Evil, he simply wrote, "Every profound spirit needs a mask." And elsewhere, he also wrote, "We are unknown to ourselves, we men of knowledge." To Nietzsche, the self is a creative fiction, a tool of survival, but the danger lies in mistaking the mask for reality. True freedom for Nietzsche lies in self-overcoming, in the constant transformation of the self. He invites us to affirm this becoming, not to seek some real self beneath the surface, but to create ourselves anew. So, who are you? Are you the sum of your memories, a continuous thread of consciousness, a body, a story, an illusion? There is no definite answer. The more we search for the real self, the more it dissolves under scrutiny. Identity turns out to not be a substance, but a pattern, not a thing, but a relation. And perhaps that's the point. To let go of the need for a fixed self is not to lose meaning. It is to embrace a more fluid, dynamic, and honest understanding of what it means to be human. You are not a static object. You are a verb, an unfolding process. You are not the real you. You are becoming.